victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Hundreds rally in Niger capital Niamey for US departure and Russia support as Russian instructors arrive to train Niger forces in the use of new military hardware. Sudan still in turmoil 365 days later as the warring paramilitary and army continue to trade barbs and wreak havoc across the nation. And in Uganda, young wrestlers dream of one day emulating their heroes and joining World Wrestling Entertainment. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janna.
And I'm Hem Kaur Soroyan. On the show today, after growing pressure from hardliners, House Speaker Mike Johnson is all set to put a series of foreign aid bills on the floor. This will also include funding for Ukraine and humanitarian aid for Gaza. We'll get you the latest on this on the show today.
On the other end, of course, Israel has asserted that it makes its own decisions. And this after allies and partners had urged Israel to not respond to the Iranian strikes and, of course, have asked for de-escalation in the region. We are going to be bringing you all the latest on that front as well. Let's get you started with the headlines.
Israel's National Security Minister Ben-Gvir slams the conduct of the war cabinet, says absolute victory is getting farther and farther away, calls for the war cabinet to be disbanded.
Israel reportedly deploys extra artillery and armored personnel carriers to Gaza, hinting at a Rafah offensive. IDF confirms buying thousands of tents for evacuation, raising fears over the long-threatened attack.
The US House of Representatives to vote on aid for Ukraine and Israel as soon as Saturday, says Republican Speaker Mike Johnson, paving the way for its possible passage despite fierce objections from the right wing.
Dubai International Airport says it is facing very challenging conditions after heavy rain batters Gulf states, causing deadly flash floods and flight disruptions at the world's second busiest airport.
Ahead of the parliamentary polls in the Maldives, the opposition parties demand a probe and impeachment of President Mohammad Muizzu following the leaked report of his alleged corruption from 2018, a charge dismissed by him.
Bayern Munich are through to the semi-finals of the Champions League. For the first time in 4 years, the German Giants beat Arsenal 1-0 in the second leg at Allianz Arena to advance 3-2 on aggregate. US House of Representatives will have its long-awaited vote on aid for Ukraine, Israel and the Indo-Pacific, and that's going to happen this Saturday.
Right. Republican Speaker Mike Johnson is trying to pave the way for its possible passage despite fierce objections. Now, earlier this week, Johnson said that the US House of Representatives will consider aid to Israel and Ukraine as separate bills.
The House Appropriations Committee unveiled the legislation that will provide more than $95 billion in security assistance. And this includes about $60 billion to address the conflict in Ukraine, out of which around $23 billion would be used to replenish US weapons, stocks and facilities. Now, on the other hand, the Israel bill totals $26.38 billion. Some of this will cover the cost of US military operations responding to recent attacks. $9.1 billion out of the total is designated for humanitarian needs, and the three bills are similar to a $95 billion foreign assistance package the Senate passed in February with strong 70% bipartisan support.
Now, the security aid effort gained urgency following Iran's weekend attacks on Israel in retaliation for a suspected Israeli airstrike on Iran's embassy compound in Damascus on the 1st of April. The Indo-Pacific measure totals about $8.12 billion. Johnson said he would give House members until midday on Saturday to review the bill and offer amendments before a vote on the final passage.
He also said he would release a separate border security bill, meeting a demand from conservatives. Democratic President Joe Biden called on Congress to pass the bill quickly. He said, and I'm going to quote here, "I will sign this into law immediately to send a message to the world. We stand with our friends and we won't let Iran or Russia succeed."
He said, when I was raised in my Ukrainian household. Interesting.
Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report on the significance of splitting the aid package into 4 separate bills. Let's listen to what she had to say.
By splitting up the aid package, Mike Johnson is trying to appease the conservatives who oppose Ukraine aid without torpedoing aid to other U.S. allies. By making this political calculation, what he's hoping to do is create unity among the Republican Party, although this seems to be easier said than done.
Now, Susan further elaborates on the chances the bill will pass without Democratic support. Can that even happen, given the slim Republican majority?
With such a slim majority, the Republicans will absolutely need the Democrats in order to pass legislation. Democrats have expressed support for the plan as long as it includes all 3 U.S. allies in humanitarian aid. Mike Johnson will need to negotiate with the Democrats for their backing or risk the plan's failure. On top of that, the White House is urging for a swift bipartisan solution, which puts Johnson in an even more difficult situation.
Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that Israel makes its own decisions about how to defend itself.
Of course, Western countries are urging for restraint in responding to a volley of attacks from Iran. And reports suggest that Netanyahu axed pre-approved plans for immediate Iran reprisal after Biden's call.
Now, the public broadcaster stated that Israeli leadership had approved a series of possible responses depending on the scope of the Iranian strikes. The responses were slated to be carried out immediately following the direct attack by Tehran. However, Netanyahu shelved the plans after speaking with US President Joe Biden shortly after the Iranian salvo.
Iran marked its National Army Day with a parade showcasing its weapons at a military base in Tehran, with heightened security around the venue. Given the tense backdrop in the wake of Iran's retaliatory strikes against Israel, stricter measures were put in place. Live broadcasting was restricted and camera crews were also limited. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and several high-ranking military officials were present and they inspected the parade.
The Israeli Prime Minister thanked the visiting foreign ministers of Germany and Britain for their country's support on Wednesday as well. He said Israel would reach its own decisions on its security. Israel's air and ground offensive in Gaza had killed almost 34,000 Palestinians.
Now, after Netanyahu, British Foreign Secretary David Cameron met Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa in Ramallah. They discussed the importance of the humanitarian relief efforts in the Gaza Strip and the need to stop the violence by settlers in the West Bank. Jordan's Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi said an Israeli retaliation against Iranian strikes could bring a real risk of dragging the whole region into a devastating war. Now, in an interview released by state media, he said that Jordan was lobbying major powers against an escalation that would have far-reaching consequences.
Qatari Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani talks on Gaza ceasefire and release of hostages, says that talks are at a delicate phase at the moment, and Qatar's premier condemned what he described as the policy of collective punishment still followed by Israel.
European Union leaders decided to step up sanctions against Iran after Tehran's missile and drone attack on Israel. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said it was important that Israel does not respond with a massive attack of its own.
We condemn this attack launched by Iran against Israel. We have decided to put in place sanctions against Iran. This is a clear signal that we want to send. And we also want to do everything to protect the civilians. Each civilian life matters. We call on the release without any conditions of all hostages. We call on a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire.
Lebanon's Hezbollah said it launched missiles and drones at a military facility in northern Israel in retaliation for strikes that killed members of the group.
Now, the Israeli military said that the incident left 14 soldiers wounded. The military said 6 of the soldiers were in serious condition. It said it struck the sources of fire after identifying several anti-tank missile and drone launches from Lebanon towards the Bedouin village of Arab al-Aramshe. As per Lebanese security sources, Israeli strikes on Tuesday killed 3 people, including a Hezbollah field commander.
Israeli National Security Minister called for the war cabinet to be disbanded. As per reports, Itamar Ben-Gvir said that it's time to dismantle the concept cabinet, stop the policy of containment and proportionality, and show our enemies who's in charge. Now, Israeli forces and Hezbollah have been exchanging fire for over 6 months in parallel to the Gaza war, in the most serious hostilities since they fought a major war back in 2006. Israeli jets hit Hezbollah infrastructure north of Baalbek in East Lebanon, reaching beyond the southern border region where Tel Aviv has focused most of its strikes.
Gaza officials slammed Israeli airstrike on a UNRWA school. 4 were killed, including 2 children, and dozens were injured.
مدرسة لواء تحوي عدد كبير من النازحين عدد كبير من النازحين داخل المدرسة تم استهداف المدرسة.
An Israeli military official stated that the Air Force is preparing the country's air defenses for future attacks from Iran.
Now, the Arrow 3 system that's designed to intercept long-range ballistic missiles was deployed successfully against a missile salvo for the first time over the weekend. The Arrow's success on Saturday night is likely to please Germany, which recently signed a contract with Israel and the United States to procure the system. Now, former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton has called for a far stronger response from Israel after Iran launched a missile and drone attack against the country.
Bolton spoke exclusively to WION to discuss possible scenarios if the tensions in West Asia boil over. He spoke to our colleague Mohammed Saleh. Do watch this one.
Iran has now threatened to use a never-used-before weapons if Israel decides to attack Iran again. Now, what weapons do you think Iran is referring to here when it says never-before-used weapons? Do you think Iran has crossed the nuclear threshold with which it is perhaps now threatening Israel?
I don't think they have nuclear weapons yet, but I do think, as your question implies, that the threat is to use nuclear weapons. And I think we should all be clear. Always a lot of discussion: how quickly can Iran manufacture a nuclear weapon? The answer is they don't need to manufacture it. They can buy it from North Korea for whatever price North Korea will try and extract from them. So this is why Israel's decision is significant, not simply in response to Saturday's attack from Iran, but out of the legitimate concern that Israel has that the next time they see ballistic missiles aimed at Israel from Iran, they have to worry that under the nose cones would be a nuclear device. So I think what they're looking for is how to deter Iran from thinking about exactly the kind of threat you just mentioned.
A lot of people are indicating that one of the targets that Israel could hit are Iran's nuclear sites. But the obvious counter to that is it not evident that if Israel attacks Iranian nuclear sites, then Iran would hit back at Israel's nuclear site in Dimona in the Negev desert?
Well, look, this is one. You're right. This is one of many questions Israel has to ask itself. It has to worry whether it could face retaliation from Hezbollah in Lebanon with tens of thousands, some estimated 120,000 missiles that Hezbollah has. But on Saturday, the Israeli government issued warnings to its civilian population in key areas and in and around big cities, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, near many of Israel's military bases, but also to residents in and around Dimona, where the reactor is. So we don't know, and obviously Israel doesn't say much about it, but that's at least some indication that in Israel they perceive Dimona to have been subject of the attack on Saturday, apparently not successfully. But in other words, it may have been Iran that crossed the red line of attacking the nuclear program of Israel first.
Now, Russia, it has maintained an impressive arsenal that it keeps using to strike Ukraine.
Of course, starting with long-range strategic launchers to ballistic missiles and water drones to heavy bombers. But reports from the front line show that Russians are now using tear gas grenades against Ukrainians.
The drones drop tear gas grenades on our infantry positions. It's like pepper spray. It makes your eyes tear up. It's not lethal, but it disturbs and knocks you out, which makes it very difficult to carry out your duties once you've inhaled it.
Now, Ukrainian military claims Russia has stepped up its use of riot control agents to clear the trenches as it makes advances in the east. Kyiv says it has recorded around 900 uses of such agents by Moscow in the past 6 months. This has resulted in around 500 soldiers requiring medical help and at least one death, according to officials.
As a result, Ukraine is giving its soldiers gas masks and preparing them for such attacks. With drills, the use of chemicals on the battlefield is banned by the International Chemical Weapons Convention, and both Russia and Ukraine are signatories to that convention. These reports come at a time when Russia has intensified its airstrikes.
3 Russian missiles as the Chernihiv, a border city. 3 Russian missiles hit Chernihiv, a border city in northern Ukraine, on Wednesday. The attack killed 17 people while injuring over 60, including 3 children. Columns of smoke covered the skies over Chernihiv, while several multi-story residential buildings, a hospital and an education facility were damaged as well.
Ukraine's President Zelensky was quick to blame the Western countries here, stating that the attack could have been prevented if Kiev had enough air defense support. With US aid blocked in Congress and the European Union failing to deliver arms on time, Ukraine is urging its allies for more air defense equipment in the face of Russia's increasing attacks on its energy infrastructure.
Fighting is also underway in the Ukrainian town of Chasiv Yar near Bakhmut. Kiev's top commander says Moscow wants the town by the 9th of May. The day Russia marks the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany. Russian troops have reached the eastern edge of the town, but for now, Kiev's brigades are holding back the assaults. At present, Russian forces control at least 18% of the Ukrainian territory. Now, NATO is conducting live maritime and air drills with participants from 13 countries.
Well, of course, the drills mark the largest military drills by the alliance in the Black Sea to date. And here's a complete report on this. Take a look.
They also want to show that they're there. They see probably themselves that they have the right to be there in the international waters and, of course, in their country.
Volker Turk, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, has urged the world to give more attention to the displacement crisis unfolding in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Now, he appealed for renewed efforts during his visit to a camp for displaced people. A conflict between Congolese army and M23 rebel groups has driven thousands out of their homes in the country. The crisis has reached a level that the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs calls it one of the worst displacement crises in the world.
Fedha Boma is a Congolese woman who was displaced from Massi with her 4 children. She lives in miserable conditions without any essentials, and there are millions like her. All they wish is for the civil war to come to an end.
They fight bullets that crossed here. Look at the conditions in which we live. When it rains here, we suffer. Look at where we sleep. When it rains, we fold our mattresses. We are going to die here. People are even raped. So there are several cases of violations happening here caused by the military.
Now, Turk's visit comes at a time when the situation in eastern part of the country is worsening due to the ongoing clashes near Goma. According to a UN report, over 700,000 people have been displaced in the country since the beginning of this year. And this brings the tally of displaced Congolese to around 7.2 million people. Women make up around 51% of those displaced.
The ongoing conflict goes back to the end of 2021. The province of North Kivu has been gripped by fighting between M23 and Congolese army. Kinshasa and UN accuse Rwanda of supporting M23 and its auxiliaries who aim to take control of minerals of the eastern region, while the rebels claim to defend ethnic Tutsi interests against Hutu militias. Rwanda denies supporting the rebel group. Scientists have discovered a surprising phenomenon in some common bacteria.
Now, these bugs are attracted to human blood. As morbid as it sounds, this newfound ability called bacterial vampirism helps explain how these bacteria, which usually cause food poisoning, can sometimes travel from the gut into the bloodstream and become deadly. Take a look at our next report.
Something sinister is lurking in the microscopic world. Researchers have uncovered a disturbing new trait. Among common bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli, these bacteria seem to have the ability to detect and feast upon human blood, earning them the unnerving moniker of vampire bacteria. This newfound ability of bacterial vampirism explains how these bacteria that usually causes food poisoning sometimes become deadly by traveling from the gut to the bloodstream. So how does their blood drinking work take place? Well, it starts with a seemingly innocuous cut or breach in the digestive system. The vampire bacteria sense the presence of blood and are drawn to the nutritious liquid part of the blood, called the serum. Swarming towards the source, once they infiltrate the circulatory system, the stage is set for a potentially deadly invasion. Researchers at Washington State University identified the newfound threat with meticulous observation and high-powered microscopy. They've also documented the bacteria's uncanny ability to detect the smallest traces of blood, a single drop in 10 billion. So how can we keep the bacteria at bay? For a start, by maintaining good hygiene, ensuring food safety, and closely monitoring any signs of internal bleeding to ward off the threat of these microbes. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. We will be back after the break. On the other side, sunny skies return to Dubai as people are seen clearing the debris amid the deluge. This after a heavy downpour brought Dubai to a standstill while paralyzing other parts of UAE and Oman.
Also on the other side, ahead of the upcoming parliamentary elections in the Maldives, the leaked report has put President Mohammad Muizzu on the spotlight. Opposition parties are demanding an investigation and impeachment of the president. More details on the other side. Do stay tuned.
The stage is set for the world's biggest elections as India goes to polls for 102 seats in Phase 1. Spread over 21 states and union territories, millions will decide the fate of 1,625 candidates, 134 of whom are female. The BJP-led NDA is locked in a high-stakes battle with the Congress DMK combined for Tamil Nadu, as the BJP eyes more seats from the south. India elections, WION continuous coverage.
Hundreds rally in Niger capital Niamey for US departure and Russia support as Russian instructors arrive to train Niger forces in the use of new military hardware. Sudan still in turmoil 365 days later as the warring paramilitary and army continue to trade barbs and wreak havoc across the nation. And in Uganda, young wrestlers dream of one day emulating their heroes and joining wild wrestling entertainment. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is One.
The biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues. Sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths. Untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. Let's get you started with the headlines.
Israel's National Security Minister Ben-Gvir slams the conduct of the war cabinet, says absolute victory is getting farther and farther away, calls for the war cabinet to be disbanded.
Israel reportedly deploys extra artillery and armoured personnel carriers to Gaza, hinting at a Rafah offensive. IDF confirms buying thousands of tents for evacuation, raising fears over the long-threatened attack.
The US House of Representatives to vote on aid for Ukraine and Israel as soon as Saturday, says Republican Speaker Mike Johnson, paving the way for its possible passage despite fierce objections from the right wing.
Dubai International Airport says it is facing very challenging conditions after heavy rain batters Gulf states, causing deadly flash floods and flight disruptions at the world's second busiest airport.
Ahead of the parliamentary polls in the Maldives, the opposition parties demand a probe and impeachment of President Mohammad Muizzu following the leaked report of his alleged corruption from 2018, a charge dismissed by him.
Bayern Munich are through to the semi-finals of the Champions League for the first time in 4 years. The German Giants beat Arsenal 1-0 in the second leg at Allianz Arena to advance 3-2 on aggregate.
Now, sunny skies return to Dubai. People are clearing up the wet debris after heavy downpour.
It was definitely something that Dubai has not seen in a long time. Now, of course, this brought Dubai to a standstill and paralyzed other parts of UAE and Oman. Flood conditions continue to impact Dubai. After 2 years worth of rain fell in just 24 hours. According to the meteorological department, it rained up to 259.5 millimeters or some 10 inches.
Travel chaos continues to cause delays at the Dubai International Airport, the world's second busiest airport. The airport authorities say that they are facing operational challenges while also advising passengers not to arrive at the airport as runways continue to be inundated with water.
Emirates Airline have extended the suspension of check-in for passengers departing the Dubai airport until 9 a.m. local time, and the airline cites operational challenges for travellers coming to the Dubai International Airport. And the move comes as several flights were delayed or diverted.
Passengers were told to check their flight status before arriving at the airport. The rainfall also flooded the streets of Dubai. The flash floods submerged the roads, stalling traffic in the Gulf state. Dubai Police has issued a public safety advisory to alert residents about the adverse weather conditions. Meteorologists say another wave of unstable weather is expected.
Behind me, you can see I'm in one of these flooded areas in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. As of right now, authorities are still trying to bail out city streets. They're trying to push abandoned cars out of the way. And at Dubai International Airport, which is the busiest international hub for travelers, they're still trying to find even space on their taxiways and runways to park planes, to take planes coming in, as well as to try to even get flight crews to the airport to take off on other flights.
Ahead of upcoming parliamentary elections in Maldives, a leaked report has now put President Mohammad Muizzu on the spotlight.
Right now, opposition parties are demanding an investigation and impeachment of the president over the report of his alleged corruption back from 2018.
Now, the leaked report highlighted documents prepared by the Financial Intelligence Unit of the Maldives Monetary Authority and the Maldives Police Service that allegedly link Muizzu to corruption. The reports claim irregularities in money transfers to President Muizzu's personal bank account. highlighting 10 critical red flag indicators of financial misconduct. These indicators suggest involvement with politically exposed persons, embezzlement, structured transactions, and the use of corporate entities to hide fund origins.
The president has denied the charges, but ahead of the elections that are slated to be held on Sunday, the allegations have created a political storm in the country. The opposition Maldivian Democratic Party and the People's National Front have demanded an investigation into the matter. Former Vice President Dr. Mohammad Jamil Ahmad has also urged impeachment of Muizzu. In a post, the former Vice President emphasized the need for accountability at all levels of governance. Despite calls from the opposition for government agencies to investigate the allegations, no official response has been issued regarding the authenticity of the leaked reports. Let's now take a look at all the developments that are coming in from the world of technology. ByteDance's TikTok, it's under scrutiny yet again as the European Commission demands answers regarding its new app, TikTok Lite. TikTok has been given just 24 hours to provide an evaluation of its new app. The Commission wants to know about the risk assessment that TikTok should have carried out before deploying the app in the European Union.
Now, this move by EU has been prompted by concerns about the app's impact on children and users' mental health. EU industry chief Thierry Breton had initiated the action under EU tech rules known as the Digital Services Act or DSA. The DSA mandates companies to tackle illegal and harmful content on their platforms, and TikTok Lite, an app with a new functionality aimed at users aged 18 plus, was launched in France and Spain this month.
In a significant development for Elon Musk's Starlink satellite project in India, the Department of Telecommunications has granted tentative approval just days before Musk's visit on the 29th of April. Starlink, which is a division of SpaceX, aims to provide global high-speed internet via satellites. After nearly 3.5 years of evaluation, the approval awaits final review by Communications Minister Ashwini Vaishnav and the Ministry of Home Affairs. The Indian government's major concern is ensuring that no stakeholders from countries sharing a land border with India have ownership in Starlink. Starlink currently offers services in several countries, including the United States, Europe, New Zealand, and Canada, among others.
Vehicle pitching downrange. Just 3 of those 9. Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Tired of attending online meetings? Well, artificial intelligence technology is here for that. Delphi AI, a tech company, is offering users a platform to create their digital clones. Interestingly, the virtual twin can not only look like the user, it can also think and talk like the user. And that means users can make their digital clones attend Zoom calls on their behalf. The company uses data from various sources to create the digital clone. It scans podcasts, it scans videos, PDFs to build a model that mimics users' thought patterns and speech. And do note, to prevent unauthorized impersonations, users will need to provide photo identification before creating the digital clone.
All right, on to news now from the world of business. The International Monetary Fund, it has announced a significant reform to its lending policy, which is aimed at accelerating debt relief for countries in crisis.
Now, this move comes amid growing concerns about delays in debt restructuring negotiations, particularly with China, the world's largest official creditor. Now, the new policy revision allows the IMF to lend to countries even if an agreement with all creditors, like China, hasn't been finalized. However, this is contingent on the IMF receiving additional safeguards to mitigate risks. This could involve stricter spending controls by the borrowing nation or assurances from other creditors of their continued support. China's growing influence as a creditor has raised concerns about its approach to debt relief.
While China often offers extended repayment periods, critics argue for more comprehensive debt write-offs. The IMF's new policy could be seen as a way to circumvent potential delays caused by such differing approaches. The reform does not explicitly target China, but it does address the challenges posed by lengthy negotiations. The IMF hopes that by offering alternative support mechanisms, it can incentivize creditors to engage in more efficient negotiations.
The IMF's reform comes amid a complex global economic landscape and a year full of elections across the world. While facilitating debt relief is crucial, it needs to be balanced with long-term fiscal sustainability as well. And the IMF is urging countries, especially those facing elections this year, to control spending and rebuild financial buffers. Global public debt levels are at a record high, with projections suggesting they could reach 99% of GDP by 2029. This highlights the importance of responsible borrowing and spending practices alongside debt relief efforts. Digital innovation has the potential to change the way we do business. It can foster inclusivity, but can it go one step further and help achieve sustainability goals as well?
Well, that's what our next report explores. Take a look.
In the age of digital innovation, artificial intelligence emerges as both the hero and villain in the quest for sustainability. On the surface, data suggests AI is a carbon culprit, using a lot more energy than a typical Google search would for the same result. But fear not, for within the circuits and algorithms lies the potential for redemption. AI, when wielded with care, has the power to transform into a climate champ, furthering the cause of renewable energy and sustainable practices. AI can optimize smart grids with precision, weaving together solar and wind energies with efficiency. With every data crunch, it prompts ways to minimize waste and maximize the utilization of renewable resources. Now that can breathe life into the promise of a greener tomorrow. However, this transformation requires more than technological prowess. It demands accountability and transparency from the architects of AI. Regulations must ensure companies reveal the energy consumption and emissions associated with their AI models, fostering trust and responsibility. Bureau Report, WION World is One.